Welcome, fight fans. MMA has come a long way from its raw, no-rules beginnings to the global phenomenon it is today. But how do we get here? What are the defining moments that shape the sport? From the rise of the UFC to the evolution of fighting styles, fighter pay controversies, and the undeniable power of trash talk, we're breaking down how MMA has transformed over the decades. This is more than just a history lesson. It's a look at the fights, the fighters, and the moments that made MMA what it is today. And of course, we'll dive into what the future holds for the sport we love. So strap in, hit that like button, and let's get into it. The rise of UFC and its impact on MMA. MMA has been around for centuries in different forms. But let's be real. When the UFC exploded onto the scene in the 90s, it completely changed the game. Back in 1993, when UFC 1 took place, it was a wild, unregulated spectacle where fighters from different disciplines squared off with hardly any rules. You had sumo wrestlers taking on kickboxers, jiu-jitsu masters battling brawlers. It was raw, unpredictable, and brutal. But that chaos is what made it so compelling. It didn't take long for UFC to realize that if they wanted MMA to survive, they had to make changes. By the early 2000s, under Dana White and the Fertitta brothers, UFC went from an underground fight league struggling to stay legal to a billion-dollar empire. The introduction of weight classes, unified rules, and sanctioning by athletic commissions legitimized the sport. Fighters started to evolve beyond just one discipline. Wrestlers learned striking, strikers learned grappling, and MMA became its own unique combat sport. Then came The Ultimate Fighter in 2005. If you were around back then, you know just how massive this reality show was for MMA. It put personalities front and center, making stars out of guys like Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonnar. Their legendary fight in the finale? That's the moment UFC exploded into mainstream sports. More TV deals, pay-per-view records, and the rise of superstars like Chuck Liddell, Georges St-Pierre, and Anderson Silva followed. The UFC didn't just grow, it dominated. They bought out competitors like Pride FC, Strikeforce, and WEC, consolidating the best talent under one roof. Now, MMA is bigger than ever, with fighters making millions and selling out stadiums worldwide. But that rapid growth didn't come without controversy. Fighter pay, judging issues, and the UFC's monopoly are all hot topics today. The evolution of training and fighting styles. Back in the early days of MMA, fighters came in with one primary skill. You had pure grapplers like Royce Gracie, who used Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to submit everyone in sight. Then you had powerhouse strikers like Maurice Smith, who showed that elite kickboxing could destroy grapplers who didn't know how to strike. Wrestlers, karate specialists, street brawlers. Everyone brought their own style, but there wasn't much blending. Fast forward to today, and the sport has evolved into something completely different. No one enters the cage as just a striker or just a grappler anymore. To compete at the highest level, you have to be a complete mixed martial artist. Fighters train in everything: boxing, Muay Thai, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, strength conditioning, and even sports psychology. The rise of MMA-specific gyms changed the game, creating a new generation of hybrid fighters. Look at the champions of today, guys like Islam Makhachev, Alex Volkanovski, and Leon Edwards. They have no clear weaknesses. They can grapple, strike, defend takedowns, and go 5 hard rounds without gassing out. Compare that to the early 2000s when specialists still dominated. Fighters like Brock Lesnar, who relied on wrestling and brute strength, or Anderson Silva, who was all about striking and rarely had to use his grappling. Technology also played a role. Fighters use high-tech recovery methods, data-driven training regimens, and even AI-based fight analysis to gain an edge. Nutrition has improved, weight cutting is more scientific, and strength and conditioning programs are dialed in like never before. What's next for MMA training? We might see more crossover from other sports, like Olympic-level athletes transitioning into MMA or new training techniques using virtual reality. One thing is for sure, the sport will continue to evolve, and the fighters of tomorrow will be even more well-rounded than today's best. The business of MMA and fighter pay controversies. One of the biggest issues in MMA right now. Fighter pay. The UFC might be worth billions, but fighters are still fighting for fair compensation. Let's break it down. The UFC has a pay structure where most fighters make a base salary, then a win bonus, and sometimes a performance bonus. But compared to other major sports, MMA fighters earn a tiny percentage of the revenue. In the NBA, players get around 50% of the league's revenue. In boxing, top fighters like Canelo Alvarez and Tyson Fury can make upwards of $30 million per fight. But in the UFC, even top contenders sometimes struggle to break $1 million. Francis Ngannou's contract dispute with the UFC put this issue in the spotlight. As the heavyweight champ, he wanted more money, better sponsorship opportunities, and health insurance for fighters. UFC wouldn't budge, so he left and signed a massive deal with the PFL, proving that fighters can find better deals outside the UFC. Then there's the issue of sponsorships. Before the UFC's Reebok and later Venom deals, fighters could wear whatever sponsors they wanted, making extra cash on the side. Now, sponsorship money is locked behind UFC's deals, and fighters lost a significant income stream. That's why you see more guys turning to outside business ventures, starting their own brands, launching YouTube channels, or jumping into boxing matches for big paydays. And speaking of boxing crossovers, that's another way fighters are fighting back. Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather? That made McGregor over $100 million. Jake Paul? Love him or hate him, he's exposing fighter pay issues by giving MMA fighters bigger paychecks in boxing than they ever saw in the cage. Until UFC increases revenue sharing or fighters unionize, this debate isn't going anywhere. The role of trash talk and marketing in MMA. Let's be honest, skill alone doesn't make a fighter a superstar. Marketing and trash talk? That's where the real money is. The perfect example? Conor McGregor. Before he took over the UFC, guys like Chael Sonnen laid the groundwork for trash talk in MMA. Sonnen talked his way into title fights, even when his record didn't exactly scream championship contender. He understood that fans love a good villain, and the more you talk, the more people pay to see you fight. Then McGregor took it to another level. His ability to sell fights through charisma, confidence, and brutal verbal beatdowns made him the biggest draw in UFC history. Fighters took notes, and now almost every major star has a signature trash-talking style. Sean Strickland, Colby Covington, and even Israel Adesanya all use mind games to hype fights. But it's not just trash talk. Social media changed everything. Fighters are their own brands now. Look at guys like Paddy Pimblett and Sean O'Malley. They built fan bases before they were even top contenders. Content creation, YouTube channels, podcast appearances, it's all part of the fight game now. Some fighters refuse to play the game, and they struggle to get big fights. UFC prioritizes marketability, which is why guys like Kamaru Usman and Demetrius Johnson, despite being dominant champions, never got McGregor-level paydays. The lesson? In modern MMA, fighting skills alone aren't enough. If you want big paydays, title shots, and star power, you better know how to sell yourself. The future of MMA, what's next? MMA has come a long way, but what's next? We're already seeing major changes. New promotions like PFL and One Championship are shaking things up, smart cage technology is being tested, and AI-driven training is on the rise. Expect even more crossovers with boxing, celebrity fights, and super fights that bring in casual fans. But will fighters finally get paid what they deserve? Will someone challenge UFC's monopoly? And could we see MMA in the Olympics one day? The sport is evolving fast, and one thing's for sure, it's only going to get bigger. MMA's journey has been nothing short of incredible, but the story is far from over. What do you think the next big evolution in the sport will be? Will fighter pay finally change? Will the UFC face serious competition? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe for more fight breakdowns, history, and everything MMA. Plus, stick around and check out one of the videos YouTube recommends for you. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.